The numbers didn't add up. That was the first thing anyone noticed. Not a reporter. Not a commissioner. Not a member of any official oversight body. Just a fan, sitting at a screen, looking at the All-Star voting totals the way fans do, casually, the way you glance at a leaderboard expecting to feel nothing, who suddenly felt something. Something was wrong. The name was there. 4th place. A player who, by every conventional measure of baseball visibility, should not have been in 4th place. Should not have been anywhere near the conversation happening at the top of that leaderboard. A minor leaguer. A name that existed in the margins of the sport rather than at its center. Sitting quietly in 4th place on the All-Star ballot like a guest who had arrived at the wrong party and somehow ended up seated at the head table. Kim Hye-Seong. The moment the screenshot spread, the question that followed it was not gentle. It was not the kind of question that gets asked with patience or benefit of the doubt or any of the soft language that usually surrounds something complicated. It was blunt and it was loud and it arrived from every direction at once. How? To understand why that question carries the weight it does, you have to understand what the All-Star ballot actually represents inside the game. It is not simply a popularity contest. That is how it is sometimes described by people who want to dismiss it, who want to reduce it to something harmless and inconsequential. But the players who have spent their careers in this game do not see it that way. They never have. The All-Star ballot is a measure of something real, not just fame, not just social media reach, not just the size of a player's fan base in a particular country with a particular relationship to online voting infrastructure. It is supposed to measure presence. Impact. The feeling a player creates in a stadium when he steps into the batter's box or toes the rubber. The kind of recognition that comes from doing something that makes people stop what they are doing and pay attention. A minor leaguer, by definition, has not yet had the chance to create that feeling at the major league level. The stage has not been his. The moment has not arrived. And that is not a criticism, it is simply the structure of a sport that has very clear lines between the players who have earned the big stage and the players who are still working toward it. Kim Hye-Seong had not yet crossed that line. 4th place said otherwise. Randy Johnson heard about it the way most people outside the game's daily machinery hear about these things, through a conversation that started somewhere else and arrived at him already carrying heat. His reaction was not measured. Randy Johnson's reactions rarely are. That has always been part of who he is, a man who spent his career throwing the baseball with a ferocity that left no room for ambiguity, and who has carried that same directness into everything he has said about the game since. He did not accuse anyone by name. He was careful enough for that. But the shape of what he said left very little room for interpretation. The All-Star game means something, he said, his voice carrying the particular weight of a man who has been to that game, who has stood on that mound, who knows what it costs to earn the right to be there. It means something to the players who get voted in legitimately. It means something to the fans who cast real votes for real reasons. And when the integrity of that process gets questioned, when people look at a leaderboard and genuinely cannot explain what they're seeing, that's not a small problem. That's a problem that goes to the heart of what the game is supposed to be. He paused. Someone needs to explain those numbers. And that explanation needs to be honest. The room where he said it went still for a moment. Not because the words were surprising. Because they were exactly what everyone else was already thinking and hadn't yet said out loud. Pedro Martinez came to the conversation from a different angle. Where Johnson led with force, Martinez led with history. With the particular authority of a man who understands that baseball's credibility is not something that was handed to the game, it was built, slowly, over generations, through the accumulated weight of moments that were real and results that were earned and records that meant something because the process that produced them could be trusted. I have been around this game my entire life, Martinez said, sitting with the composed stillness of someone who chooses his moments carefully. And the thing that has always made baseball special, the thing that separates it from other sports in the way people relate to it, is that it is honest. The numbers are honest. The records are honest. The process is honest. He let that land. When you have a situation where a player who has not played a single inning at the major league level this season appears in fourth place on a national ballot, you have to ask yourself a question. Not a hostile question. A fair question. A question the game owes its own history. He straightened slightly. Is this process still honest? The question did not require an answer in that moment. It required an investigation. CC Sabathia was the loudest of the three. That surprised no one who knows him. Sabathia has always been willing to say the thing that other people are circling around, to walk directly into the center of a difficult conversation without the diplomatic softening that sometimes makes difficult conversations useless. I'm going to say what everybody's already saying in private, he began. This is a problem. A real one. Not a "let's wait and see" problem. Not a "we'll look into it eventually" problem. A right now problem. He was asked specifically about the mechanism, about how online voting systems can be manipulated, about the particular vulnerability of international fan bases with access to organized voting infrastructure, about the difference between enthusiasm and coordination. Sabathia did not retreat into technicalities. I don't care about the mechanism right now. I care about the outcome. I care about the fact that there are players, good players, legitimate players, players who have grounded out every single day of this season at the major league level, who are looking at that leaderboard and asking themselves why they bothered. Why it matters. What the point is of doing the work if the process that's supposed to recognize the work can be gamed by anyone with a phone and a coordinated group chat. He shook his head. That's not a small thing to ask a player to swallow. And then there was Shohei Ohtani. 2.3 million votes. Leading the ballot by a margin so large it existed in a different category from everyone else on the list. A number that did not raise questions, because every single one of those votes made immediate, obvious, undeniable sense to anyone who had watched him play this season. This is the particular cruelty of the situation that the All-Star ballot now finds itself in. At the very top of the leaderboard sits a number that is beyond reproach. 2.3 million votes for Shohei Ohtani is not a scandal. It is not a controversy. It is not even surprising. It is the predictable result of a player doing things on a baseball field that no one has ever done before, hitting with that kind of power, pitching with that kind of precision, doing both in the same game, in the same season, year after year, without the performance ever starting to feel routine. Ohtani's votes are real because Ohtani's baseball is real. Every person who clicked his name did so because they had seen something that justified the click. The scandal is not at the top of the leaderboard. The scandal is 4 spots below it. And that contrast, the legitimate dominance sitting directly above the questionable number, makes the fourth-place situation harder to ignore, not easier. Because it shows what the ballot looks like when it's working. When real performance produces real recognition. When the numbers reflect something that happened on an actual field in front of actual people. Kim Hye-Seong's number reflects something else. What exactly, nobody has yet been able to say with certainty. But the absence of certainty is itself the problem. MLB released a statement. It was the kind of statement that organizations release when they need to say something without yet knowing what to say: careful language, appropriate concern, a commitment to reviewing the process, a promise of transparency that is easier to make than to keep. It did not satisfy Randy Johnson. It did not satisfy Pedro Martinez. It did not satisfy CC Sabathia. And it did not satisfy the players currently sitting in major league clubhouses looking at that leaderboard and trying to make sense of what they were seeing. What it did was confirm what everyone already suspected. The question was real. The concern was legitimate. And the answer, the actual, honest, complete answer, had not yet arrived. Baseball has survived scandals before. It has survived things larger than a voting irregularity. It has rebuilt trust after moments that seemed designed to destroy it permanently. The game is more durable than any single controversy. But durability is not the same as invulnerability. And the All-Star ballot, small as it might seem in the grand machinery of a 162-game season, touches something that the game cannot afford to leave unprotected. It touches the idea that the process is fair. That the recognition means something. That when a name rises to the top of a leaderboard, it rose there because of what happened between the lines. Randy Johnson built his Hall of Fame career on that idea. Pedro Martinez built his legacy on it. CC Sabathia built 30 years of credibility on it. Shohei Ohtani is building something historic on it right now, 2.3 million votes that nobody is questioning, for a player nobody can stop watching, doing things nobody has ever done. That story deserves a clean leaderboard. It deserves a process that nobody has to defend. The game owes him that. The game owes all of them that. The investigation has begun. The answers are overdue.